G20 analyst Gracia Paramitha. Good morning, Mbak Gracia.
Halo Mbak Gracia.
Good morning.
Good
Hi.
morning.
Hope
Thank
you're
you for
doing well.
joining
Thank you for
us.
joining us here on the C Morning Show.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, let's jump right into this. How is Indonesia's G20 presidency
Sure.
capable of solving this ongoing climate crisis through this energy transition plan?
That's a very interesting question. Before we go further to the progress, we shouldn't forget that Indonesia played a very important role back in 2009 when President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono firstly stated the Indonesian commitment to reduce emission up to 26% by 2030 in the baseline of 1990s. In that period, Indonesia became the first voluntarily based country to show that we do something, we play bigger role or action on the climate change issues until the COP26, 2 decades after the global climate agreement. Finally, we got stronger guidelines after Paris Agreement in 2015 because we now increase the rate of emission reductions up to 29% by 2030. And in this April, our government is applying or implementing the carbon tax. That's actually another bigger step after, it's usually just a voluntary action or a voluntary collaboration among countries. And I think Indonesia will be a strong bridge builder either through the developed countries and developing countries, and especially the countries beyond G20. For example, like other African countries, Pacific Islands countries, small island states. Those are actually the strategic role from Indonesia to show that we are engaging other parties or engaging other stakeholders.
Okay, Mbak Gracia, as we know that we are going to host the G20, so my next question would be,
Yes.
why does Indonesia have to take the lead and address climate sustainability in G20?
I think this is like an inevitable fact that we've got at least 3 strong points in environment. First, Indonesia becomes the 3rd largest tropical forest in the world after Brazil, Amazon, and Congo. Second, we are also having 1,000 islands, almost 18,000 islands, a big archipelago, and that means we have a strong maritime resources that we need to further explore. And third, this is another prospect because Indonesia is now having a bonus of demography.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this is not just based on quantitative statistics. It has to be developed through the quality of the young generations, through their capacity, through the digital transformation, the way we use wisely of the social media to spread out the campaign and the raise the awareness of climate actions. Because climate change, based on the World Economic Forum, has been the top highlighted issue right now, even competing with the security issue or even global economy. And I think this is one of the valuable role and valuable capacity from Indonesia to show other G20 countries and beyond.
Yeah, but Gracia, I totally agree with everything you just said. And knowing all of this and what a big role and a big part that we're playing in this particular G20 presidency, what are some of the targets that have been set by the government or perhaps goals when it comes to climate change in particular? And how feasible, in your opinion, are these goals?
I think we already have strategic working groups. So there are 2 working groups which will be very specifically relevant to the climate change. Energy Transition Working Group under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral. And then the second one called Environment Deputy Minister on Climate Sustainable Working Group. That's under the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. But don't forget with the non-state actors like engagement groups. There are business, civil 20, youth 20, women 20, think tank 20. And when we already have 29% of reducing the emission, it has to be enhanced by the concrete best practices that have been done by, for example, Society for Renewable Energies or think tank groups or even the academics and other civil society groups, because the role of engagement groups cannot be separated by the elites of the G20 itself. And Indonesia would like to show that coordination and collaboration are the key elements, among these synergies of G20 stakeholders. There will be more and more initiative among engagement groups to show the climate actions. I can give you an example. Like last month, there is an interesting dialogue among environmental NGOs around the world, around G20 countries, between civil 20 groups and other engagement groups. I think this is something that we need to further explore and engage more. And our Sherpa of the G20 is very welcome. We are very open for other collaborations, even other initiatives from, communities. I think community base is also another principle that cannot leave behind.
Yeah, that's so true. Because we have to work from the community, we have to work from ourselves also. And Mbak Gracia, if we talk about global effects of this climate change, can you elaborate more about this? And if the G20 there will result in climate sustainability, what effect will the world see?
I think the most paramount factor to measure this is the real action to implement each targets. Most of the UN states, the member states of the United Nations already agreed to reduce their emissions. So that right now it's very urgent to show it, to give the evidence. For example, deforestation rate in Indonesia, it's been decreased, but that's not just the only data. I think there is also another big exploration to use the maritime issue or the maritime sources to cope with climate change issues. Because so far, the only measurement for reducing emission is usually based on land sources. We have abundant sources in the maritime or sea or the marine and oceans. That should be other priority by Indonesia in this G20.
Right. I mentioned at the top of our discussion, Gracia, in regards to gender, whether or not it plays a role in this issue, and if so, how. So what role can women or indigenous communities or the disabled or even the youth play in correlation in combating climate change?
That's a very great question. Indonesia has promoted inclusiveness in the G20 forum. It means that we are trying to engage and make sure no one left behind as the big promotion or a big campaign from the United Nations itself. So that's aligned with the G20 principle, especially in the G20 Indonesia Presidency. Another interesting fact that I want to share from Women's Forum in the G20, there are more women doing change on their lifestyle, like they're having sustainable lifestyle more than men. And women has a very there is like 55% from women giving a lot of changes, even small changes in their houses, in their family, educate their children, how to separate the waste management, how to save the energy. And I think that's another step, that women is not the object. We need to transform our mindset and identity that women can lead, women can take role without leaving the other marginalized groups like youth, indigenous communities, disabled, or people with disabilities, because G20 Indonesia also promoted the special campaign how the people with disabilities can be developed and have further opportunities.
That's great to hear, because we don't focus on that enough as well, of these
That's
different
true.
groups and what a large role, even if you put them all together,
Yeah.
especially if you put them all together, what a large role they can play as well. Mbak Gracia, unfortunately we're out of time, but thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Mbak
this
Gracia.
quick in-depth look on the upcoming
No
G20
problem.
presidency. We hope to touch base again with you really soon.
Stay safe, Mbak.
Stay healthy. Take good care. Have a great
Stay
week.
healthy. Thank you.
Bye.